Hi folks, I'm at Geoscience Australia in Canberra, which is part of the country of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. We all love the science of the earth. I'm assuming that's why you're watching this presentation right now. One of the main themes that typically gets thrashed about when a group of earth-loving scientists like us get together is, how can we get others to see what we love? And how can we get others to appreciate us and our skills and our knowledge? An important way for us to do this is to demonstrate value and impact for some of our nation's greatest challenges, and to listen to matters of concern for people in the community. I want to share some thoughts on this and some exciting new demonstrations of our science and its impact and recognition as a valuable part of our society and our nation. This presentation has three main parts. Firstly, I want to explore how we define and talk about ourselves, particularly how we can benefit from embracing a broad definition as geoscientists. Then I want to give some demonstrations of ways that we can incorporate these geoscience perspectives to have greater impact and relevance. And finally, I want to look towards the future, especially in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to consider the roles and science culture that we can bring to that. An important theme here is for us to bring our best and most connected person to our geoscience. I'm now in the foyer at Geoscience Australia, right next to our now sanitised and famous lunar touchstone. How we present and define ourselves is much more important than we've previously acknowledged. This is important because it's actually how the world sees us, and most especially how they evaluate our motivations and aspirations. Traditionally, we've had a strong emphasis on geology and mining. The challenge here is that the community's benefit and value is more from appropriately and ethically sustainable chain of supply, use and destiny of these resources, rather than just mining. An equivalent example is how our nation loves the joy and fellowship of sharing a meal of lamb, rather than the vision of the abattoir. Advice and decisions based on good science are important here, as well as the connection and appreciation to our Earth system. The Earth system includes, but extends beyond, the rocks and geology, and as such, a broader geoscience perspective is needed here. This includes not only geology and Earth resources, but also fields that have been traditionally considered as parts of geography, environmental science, marine science, climatology, community safety, and even space. On the point of geoscience and space, Geoscience Australia has a close relationship with the Australian Space Agency, especially because the same funding that established the Australian Space Agency also provided Geoscience Australia with funding for 2 of the 7 national civil space priorities. They are position, navigation and timing, as well as Earth observation. Geoscience Australia embraces this broad definition of our science within geoscience, not just in our name, but also in our science and our strategic planning. It's exciting to bring together champions of subject matter expertise with those that also see the bigger societal and Earth system perspective. Geoscience Australia is our national public sector geoscience organisation. We provide advice on the geology and geography of Australia to support progress, growth and investment. Our decadal strategy, Strategy 2028, sets out the impacts of our work for the next decade. We have organised this under 6 key impact areas. Number 1, building Australia's resource wealth. 2, supporting Australia's community safety. 3, securing Australia's water resources. 4, managing Australia's marine jurisdictions. 5, creating a location-enabled Australia. And 6, enabling an informed Australia. Let's look at some demonstrations of our approach to geoscience. One example is our Positioning Australia program. Our team here says that everything happens somewhere. The Positioning Australia program is developing a world-leading satellite positioning capability, or what many may be more familiar as GPS. The program will provide accurate, reliable and real-time positioning across Australia. It will enable increased productivity, new and innovative technologies, and accelerate economic growth, particularly for regional Australia. Much of this work is taking place in remote areas, including communities such as Indigenous communities. We are also encouraging their participation by sourcing goods and resources directly through local communities. Our motivation is to develop and sustain respectful and meaningful relationships, build local capacity, and contribute to local economic development for mutual benefit. The program encompasses the National Positioning Infrastructure Capability, or NPIC, and a satellite-based augmentation system, or SBAS, and is underpinned by the Australian Geospatial Reference System. Currently, we can now know our position on the Earth within 5 to 10 metres of accuracy. By upgrading our existing ground stations, we will improve our positioning accuracy to within 3 to 5 centimetres for areas with mobile phone coverage and 10 centimetres for the remainder of Australia and its maritime zones. We will also deliver open source tools and software to support our use of positioning, navigation and timing services. This work is vital for the next wave of innovation, from location-based automation or artificial intelligence to augmented reality. Positioning Australia is fundamental in supporting the transformational technologies that will benefit our economy. An independent report which investigated the benefits of SBAS found that it would create $6.2 billion of value over 30 years, over $200 million per annum economic benefit initially, with plenty of upside across a range of sectors. It's also important to note that we expect that there will be uses that we haven't thought of yet, enabling innovation and new businesses to start and flourish. In the Digital Earth Australia program, we are transforming satellite imagery into insights about changes in Australia's natural and built environments. Digital Earth Australia provides access to high-quality satellite imaging of the Earth's surface to detect physical changes across Australia in unprecedented detail. Digital Earth Australia gives farmers, land managers, industry and government the information they need to make better decisions about how they optimise the use of their resources. An example of where Digital Earth Australia has been applied to support decision-making is through the development of the Waterbodies product, which is a reliable water monitoring tool. We developed this in partnership with the New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment and the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, but rapidly expanded it to nationwide coverage. The Digital Earth Australia Waterbodies tool uses Geoscience Australia's archive of over 30 years of Landsat satellite imagery to identify about 300,000 water bodies in the Australian landscape, telling us the wet surface area as it changes over time within those water bodies. The tool supports users to understand and manage water across Australia. For example, you can gain insights into the severity and extent of drought or identify potential water sources for aerial firefighting during bushfires. Another example that I expect is now well known to many of you is the Digital Earth Australia Hotspots tool. Geoscience Australia will continue to improve how it provides this information, such as it did during the heavy demands of last summer's bushfires. Digital Earth Australia will benefit you if you need accurate and timely information on the health and productivity of Australia's landscape. It will support government and industry to better monitor change, to protect and enhance Australia's natural resources, and enable more effective policy responses to natural resource management problems. Through the Exploring for the Future program, we are building a prospectus of mineral, energy, and groundwater resources for Australia. In the first phase of the Exploring for the Future program, some 21 projects delivered over 250 new datasets and technical reports covering more than 3 million square kilometres of the continent and creating images of the Earth's crust and upper mantle down to 200 kilometres depth, assisting in identifying the large-scale systems that result in the creation of ore deposits, oil and gas fields, and groundwater resources. All of this data, such as this airborne electromagnetic data, is freely available through our digital catalogue and world-leading data discovery portal. I encourage you to visit the portal at eftf.ga.gov.au to have a look around and start making your own discoveries, such as from these new insights on plate thickness relationships to some styles of mineralisation. The Exploring for the Future program has changed perceptions and behaviours in the minerals, petroleum and groundwater industries, with the program's pre-competitive data and information translating into realising greater resources potential for many areas and more exploration activity by industry. The returns from the potential discovery and development of new mineral and energy resources alone from this program were estimated by ACIL Allen to range from $446 million under the most conservative modelling to more than $2.5 billion under the most optimistic modelling. These returns represent economic development and jobs for our nation. The outcomes and impacts that I've just described from the first phase of Exploring for the Future have inspired the extension of Exploring for the Future for a second phase with a $125 million extension and expansion of the program for the next 4 years. The emphasis of this phase is to take the program national. While the work will be extended into southern Australia, 2 corridors that extend north-south across the continent will ensure continued focus on prospective regions in northern Australia. Through encouraging investment, the program will continue towards the nation's post-COVID-19 economic recovery, creating jobs where they are needed, especially in regional and remote communities, both now and into the future. I'm now in the Geoscience Australia Education Centre, where we've had thousands of students come and visit Geoscience Australia and learn a little bit more about the Earth that they live in. We live in interesting times, and probably the most inevitable feature of our time is change. Key here is going to be how we are resilient, how we adapt, but most of all, how we adopt changes as opportunities. One challenge that we still have to adapt to is how we will maintain and grow our connection within our community of scientists and extend that into our society. I'm not referring here to online or internet connection, but rather how we authentically connect as people and communities, and most particularly, how we best live and connect with our country and the nation and planet in which we live. With busy times, busy lives, and then lockdowns, border closures, and other pressures, these connections will be a challenge to maintain and grow. To meet this challenge, our science is more important now than it has ever been, especially because of the risk of misinformation and then poor decisions about country and places that we are less connected with. Skill and knowledge will be important, but also how we make our data and information accessible, as well as ensuring that we provide fit for purpose and relevant data and information for making efficient and connected decisions about our country. I feel we have much to learn from Indigenous people and their connection to country, but also their traditions of respect and passing on skill and knowledge related to country. How many of our increasingly urban society understand where we live in relation to geology, geography, landscape, or broadly country? Despite the amount of landscaping, concreting, asphalt, and artificial lawn that we cover the ground with, we still have to remember that we live as part of an active, changing, and dynamic Earth. Education and communication of our science will be really important here. I love working with a group of scientists that also maintains an active and engaging education program with visiting school groups and increasingly more and more online delivery. This is also reflected in the respectful way that we access land and marine areas to conduct our science. And as part of this, Geoscience Australia has recently established a land and marine access team, known as LAMA, to lead us on a best practice approach in this area. Whilst communication and education are important, so too is the need to bring our best ears and actively listen to the community and their matters of concern that we are then able to engage with. Thank you for watching this presentation, and I hope that I've given you some new insights and perspectives of how a broad definition of ourselves as geoscientists within the context of a broader Earth system can help bring higher impact and value from our science to our nation. I look forward to watching and learning from the other presentations of this conference and thank the conference organisers for this opportunity to present. Let's bring our best and most connected person to achieve better outcomes for geoscience. Thank you.